You're welcome.
Ready?
And just a reminder before we get started, everyone, the mics are always hot. Thank you.
You ready for me to start? All right.
We recording?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. This is Tim Busha, Chair of the Region 6 Anderson Regional Flood Planning Group. I want to call the meeting of September 11, 2025 to order at 10:11 a.m. Thank you for all being on in person and virtually. And as we try out a revisit of a facility, we want to give thanks to the Harris-Galveston County Subsidence District and Mike Turco for allowing us to be here this morning, and also on our next meeting is our plan to be here, and we'll talk more about that later today. Before we do roll call, one other reminder, all voting members should have your camera on for, according to the vice chair, for the official acts of a state board organization. So with that, Timothy, will you please do roll call?
Timothy Busca.
Present.
Aaliyah Benson.
Present.
Erwin Burton.
Present.
Augustus Campbell.
Present.
Matthew Barrett.
Present.
Tina Peterson. Tina Peterson. Lisa Messiah Donovan.
Present.
Connie Patier.
Present.
Paul Locke.
Present.
Anada Rifai.
Present.
Paresh Ladd.
Present.
Ricardo Harris.
Present.
Todd Burr. Todd Burr.
Present. Sorry, it's hard to hear you.
Sorry about that. Speak a little louder. Christina Quintero.
Present.
Imelda Diaz.
Present.
We have four.
Will you also we may want to check if Gary Bezimick is present for Dr. Peterson?
Okay.
Yes.
Gary Biscuit?
I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
And then if you'd go through the non-voting members.
Hope Zubek.
Present.
Michelle Ellis. Christian Lambert.
Present.
Joe Clark. Santiago Franco. Nicholas Collins.
Present.
Melinda Johnson. Justin Bauer.
Present. Good morning.
Ellie Albury.
I'm sitting in for Ili Alkari, David Saha.
Thank you. Tom Hyde. Michael Turco.
Present.
Brandon Wade. Sally Bacco.
Present.
Lisa Maris. Todd Burr. Sorry.
Wrong
Ian
list.
Hasselbeck. Mark Butler. Lisa Max.
Thank you, sir. Would you send a broadcast email to the membership? Right now, there was a Teams meeting, and there's someone on the Teams meeting, if you will, and send them this way. Thank you. All right, Timothy, do we have any registered public comments? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak? Yes, sir. Would you,
Ask him to come up to the mic.
can you come up to the mic here and state your name, please?
Can I get you a water?
What?
Can I get you a water?
Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Block, and I live up in Kingwood. I'm a retired engineer. And I have just two questions for the group. The first has to do with the volume of water that has to be managed, stormwater that has to be managed for any given storm. After the May 2nd storm, I ran a calculation of how much water went over the spillway and through the gates of the current Lake Houston Dam. And it came out to 1,415,000 acre feet of water. Since my retirement years ago, I've been following what Region 6 has been doing, and I haven't seen data on the volumes of stormwater that need to be managed for any given storm from the various tributaries of the basin. And it would seem that there's lots of data from USGS sites where those determinations could be made, but they just haven't been made. So I was wondering if you all are going to look at that, because it seems that if you understand how much stormwater needs to be managed, that this would factor into management plans for that stormwater. The second issue is related to the first, and that is the governor and the state legislature have put a priority on maximizing resources of fresh water in the state of Texas. The growth of population in industry in Texas is going to be dependent on the availability of fresh water. And I've noticed that in the planning for Region 6, there's a lot of discussion of detention basins. And my question is, would it be reasonable to put more emphasis on retention basins where stormwater could be retained for the benefit of increasing freshwater supplies in the state of Texas? The state of Texas is talking about spending a great deal of money for conservation of fresh water. It would seem that money spent for flood control and freshwater conservation is aimed at the same end result. So those are the two questions that I would have for you to address at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And can I ask, were you able to sign in when you came in? Were you able to sign in when you
Yes.
came in?
Yes, I
Thank
did.
you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Please come forward. Mind stating your name?
Thank you all very much. I am Imad Abdullah. I'm an architect, member of the American Institute of Architects in Houston. My company is Landmark Architects, Inc. I've been in Houston about 50 years. I want to offer a suggestion for reducing flooding in Houston. The key to it is reducing the amount of water that flows south from Barker's Reservoir when it's full. We always tend to think of the water flowing from the west to the east, but actually that reservoir has a channel that drains Cinco Ranch. And if when it fills up, we send the water westwards towards Cinco Ranch, to the south of that area is a lot of open land and it's low land, and we can connect there to Bray's Bayou. Now, we don't want to add water to Bray's Bayou, so the key is to give Bray's Bayou more capacity. And if we go west near the town of Wallace, San Bernard River and the Brazos are within 4 miles. And we can develop a channel where when storms are coming, water is diverted from the Brazos to San Bernard and give the Brazos the capacity that it needs. Now, San Bernard has a lot of open land. I know it floods some places, but it is a lot cheaper to do reservoirs and holding large detentions for the amount of water than try to do it closer near Harris County. I do realize these things take a lot of money. Moving water, I know some of the development, the Loose project and so on, and they're expensive, but this is a long-term solution, but it's a very realistic solution considering how close Brazos and San Bernard are. That's my thoughts to you today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the public comment. I do know that water reuse or the capture of stormwater for potable water use is a major emphasis by the state of Texas, and the state flood plans have an element of them that can use a project that has that for pointing and scoring. I know we have the Allens Creek project on the west side of Harris County that is a viable surface water project. And I know other regions of the state that have more topography are able to create some opportunities. But we will definitely pass these comments on to our technical consultant and get insight. So appreciate the interest and the input today. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4. Texas Water Development Board update.
Good morning. I don't have a ton of updates as there's only been 2 updates that I think would be pertinent to this since our last meeting. Just as a reminder, and I'm sure the voting membership and technical consultants know, TWDB is going to be hosting a technical conference call on 9/12. If you have not gotten this invite, please reach out to me and I can forward it to you. And then the other update is TWD made updates to Exhibit C technical guidelines. These are available on our second cycle planning documents webpage. If anybody would like that link, please let me know and I can put that in the chat as well. And that concludes my updates.
Thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate it. We'll move on to item number 5, approval of meeting minutes. For the voting members, you have 2 sets of meeting minutes that should have been in your packet that was provided. The May 14th, 2025 meeting and the August 14th, 2025 meeting. And I know we have received some comments in my conversations with Jonathan. I'll open the floor to additional comments. Matt, how are you doing?
Doing well. I did have some comments I sent over. They may have been in too late to get put into the formal minutes. There were some that were substantive, but I would say they didn't have major meaning changes. That makes sense. So in lieu of going through them all, I can give some examples and then work with Jonathan if that's appropriate and everyone's on board with that.
That would be wonderful for me.
So attendees, there were some missing. Some of the numbers looked off on the attendees and the number needed for quorum. There were some name corrections that were needed. A reference to the Public Information Act, I think should have been Open Meetings Act. Some minor wording or format edits to make the minutes match the presentation or the agenda. Those are some of the examples. Also, I think the meeting was on May 1st, unless my calendar was totally mixed up. It shows May 14th. We just checked that date. And then one item that I wasn't sure on was an item 10 on the May minutes under 3A, the wording in that first paragraph. It didn't quite make sense. I think something got messed up on a sentence there. Something got left out. So I may need to look back at that. But those are the type of comments that I have. If there's no objection, I'm happy to work with Jonathan to get those made.
Do we need 2 motions?
We could do a single motion.
All right.
I'm happy to make that motion as revised.
Any other comments, concerns on the minutes? Do I have a second for the motion by Ms. Vincent?
I'll second.
I have a second by Matt. Any additional commentary? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the May 1st and August 14th meeting minutes for Regional Flood Planning Group, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Jonathan, please be sure to follow up with Matt. We'll move on to item number 6, liaison reports pertaining to other regions, progress and status, and other related entities. And Trinity, Todd, do you have any comments to offer?
Yeah, nothing unusual to report. They're following very similar to what we're doing, so nothing out of the ordinary to report.
Thank you, Todd. I don't see our representative from the Natchez region here, and we don't have a liaison currently, so we'll pass on that. Lower Brazos region, typically that would have been Brandon Wade, because you're with the Region H, Mike, right?
No, I think I have Lower Brazos now.
You have Lower
But
Brazos.
I can talk about both.
That'd be great.
Whenever you need a sub in on either one,
That'd
I'm
be
there
great,
for you.
Mike.
As far as Lower Brazos is concerned, again, everybody's kind of going through the same process right now. But I did want to mention that over the last few weeks, they've been holding several public meetings to give a presentation. I mean, an open house type format on the process, and they've been held. They were held back beginning in August. They've been held in Waco, College Station, Rosenberg, Granbury, and today is the last one in Georgetown. So a really good opportunity they've taken to kind of, because their area is quite large, to hit multiple spots and just provide an open house venue to people to come and ask questions and talk to the staff related to the flood planning group. And their next meeting will be held here on September 18th. That concludes my report.
Here?
Not here. No, it will be held. They actually hold their meetings at the Brazos River Authority's office up in Waco.
All right, okay. Great. Before I ask you about Region H, technical consultant, could you reach out, since y'all are kind of all a little incestuous anyway, all these consultants? It'd be great to get a copy of the presentation for that group to provide to our public engagement committee.
Yeah, they actually have that on their website. It's posted.
Great.
Yeah.
And what can you tell us about Region H?
Well, they're at the end of their planning cycle, and their next meeting is October 1st. And I expect at that meeting they'll consider the final Region H water plan to be submitted to the board. That's due here at the end of this year, and we've already started the planning process for the next plan. So it doesn't end; it just reloads in January. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
And then Miss Sally, I see you're on this morning. Would you care to share anything about the Gulf Coast Protection District?
Certainly. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Just some quick updates on our Coastal Texas G28-1 project. This is our breakwater project that is ecosystem project that is along West Bolivar and the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway. We're at 30% design deliverable, and we will be submitting that to the Corps tomorrow. We're on schedule with that, and we expect to have 60% design later this year. On our initial design RFQs, the last time we met, I informed you we had released in July two RFQs, one for the Bolivar Gate System. This is for initial design efforts and initial environmental clearance efforts, as well as a separate RFQ for the Bolivar and West Galveston Beach and Dune System. Those two RFQs closed on August 22nd. We're in the process of coming up with a short list of interviews for 3 firms on the gate system and come up with top 4 respondents for interview lists on the beach and dune system. We are still planning to come up with recommendations for the board, and the board acting likely in our November meeting. Last week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Energy and Water Development Appropriations Bill for FY 2026. Included in that bill was a community project funding request for the Coastal Texas project. It's a $5 million request, and that made it into the bill and out of the House. The Senate has not acted on their version of the bill yet. And of course, Congress is in the midst of deciding how they're going to keep the government open on October 1. So we don't really know the future of it, but it is encouraging that we made it into the House bill, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. So that's my update for today.
Thank you, Sally. Sally, where will the November GPCD meeting be?
We have not set the location of that yet. The October meeting is going to be at the Clear Lake office, but as soon as I will probably identify that location for the November meeting at the October meeting, and I can certainly share that with you once we do that.
All right, we will move on to item number 7. Should be the technical committee report. And I believe Imelda is chair. Imelda, are you available? Any updates on your side?
I am available. I don't have any updates. We didn't have a meeting.
Okay. I didn't think so, but I thought I better.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Then on moving on to item number 8, Public Engagement Committee report. Todd?
Don't have any updates from that. We did have our meeting, and I think we reported that at the last time, but I don't have any new updates for us.
Thank you, Todd. All right. Our favorite technical consultant. So we will go to task item number 9 on our agenda. Updates in the San Jacinto Regional Flood Planning Group Technical Consultant on the 2028 planning cycle, including discussion and possible action to approve minimum standards for Task 3A and floodplain management goals for Task 3C. And y'all have microphones, and we are ready to roll.
Great, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me okay. We have our agenda up on the screen. We're going to talk through quickly Task 2B, an update since August, as well as we are looking for action on Task 3A, flood management practices, and Task 3C, our flood management goals. And then we'll give a quick update on Task 4C and a slide on our schedule. So you have seen this slide before in the August RFPG meeting. We did want to reiterate what was presented and give a quick summary of what was approved by both the RFPG and the board with pending minor final comments. We do have the region split up into 3 zones where we are simulating future rainfall, in some cases, vertical buffering results in other models, and then finally using future fathom scenario 3 as a last layer. And so again, that was approved in the August RFPG meeting, and then we did submit it to the board after that, and they had some minor technical comments, but those have been submitted back to the board, and we expect that final approval shortly. If there's no discussion on 2B, I will move on to 3A.
Timothy, you got a little dialogue box up there. Could you X out?
Yeah, I've been trying to X that out for a minute.
Maybe we could just move it all the way to the bottom of the screen or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it would be a.
This won't be recorded.
All right. Please continue.
Tim, the clicker just stopped working. Can you move to the next slide? So Task 3A, I know that we discussed this in the August RFPG meeting. And then if you'll go to the next slide, we did also solicit feedback after that August RFPG meeting from the group and have posted our proposed minimum standards online. This is a key requirement for the technical memo due at the end of the year. And so we have 13 minimum standards recommended. 7 of those are no change from the first cycle. 1 of them has been updated. And then 5 new minimum standards that we are recommending and looking for action on as a part of this meeting. So I'll open it up for discussion.
And do you have a listing of those that you can share?
Not within the slide deck, but they are posted to the website as supplemental meeting materials.
But would you be able to describe them?
Yes, Jonathan, I don't know if you happen to download them. So pulling them up right now.
1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 categories.
So we have
Board
participation
focus
in the NFIP, which was a first cycle standard that has not changed. We have development of no adverse impact policies, which also has no change. We have established minimum finished floor elevations, which was the one that was updated slightly to include a comment on Atlas 14 or newer rainfall to be considered when establishing FFEs. And then we also included language on critical facilities this cycle as an update. We then move on to encouraging the best use of available data, which also just now references Atlas 14 or newer rainfall. That was one comment we received after the August RFPG meeting and have made that change. We then get into compensatory storage requirements for both the 100-year and 500-year floodplains, which are first cycle standards. We have the development of detailed H&H analysis criteria and requirements, which is a first cycle standard with no updates. We then have incentivizing the preservation of the floodplain, which is a first cycle standard with no updates. And then we get into our 5 new standards, which is nature-based solutions, encouraging new construction to consider nature-based solutions. And then we have operations and maintenance to prevent replacement expenses. Regulatory entities are encouraged to create a maintenance plan for drainage infrastructure. We have another one on property acquisition, encouraging regulatory entities to develop property acquisition programs for repetitive loss structures. Second to last one is flood warning systems, encouraging the development of flood warning systems for public awareness. And then the last one is hazard mitigation plans, encouraging the development of hazard mitigation plans to help prepare, respond to, and recover from flood events. So it does look like it is on the screen now. If you'll go to the second page where I just ended.
And so did you say the formal action you're seeking is a formal adoption of these?
A recommendation of these minimum standards. If you'll recall, there's a distinction between recommending the minimum standards and adopting them.
Yes, it was recommended. And I think when you say reference to the .2 ACE, you're referencing that to pre-Atlas 14 maps, since there's no official Atlas 14 maps out. Any reference to the 500 years based on current rainfall?
The regulatory rainfall, that's correct, yes.
Current regulatory rainfall, which is the effective FEMA map.
Question, Tanner, do we have the term regulatory entities defined anywhere? Just curious what that is.
I know the board has it defined in their Exhibit C guidance.
Right, and maybe just to restate for all of the members, right, what Maggie was reminding us all is that we're talking about recommending minimum standards, not requiring or mandating minimum standards. So this would be an action related to approving recommended minimum standards.
That's correct.
Okay.
I believe I saw Erwin had his hand raised.
Yes, I had 2 questions or 2 comments. One, if a community, you referenced the best available data, which any community can adopt the next maps instantly based on best available data. That could be addressed through that. The only other thing I wanted to verify is what are the freeboard requirements above the floodplain? And I have a reason to ask that, but I just want to ask what that is currently in the recommendations.
Tim or Jonathan, if you'll scroll up to the finished floor elevation section, it has the freeboard requirements. Oh, right. It's the large.
Erwin kind of going through it. there is a firm plus 1 foot of the effective firm plus 1 foot in coastal zones. Critical facilities are the effective firm 500-year plus 2.
And just to note, those are new critical facilities, right?
New critical
Yes.
facilities. And then if it's been updated by Atlas 14, it's the 100-year plus 2.
Okay.
And then if it's in critical facilities, it's the effective firm plus 2 as well.
The reason I was
Coastal
asking
zone.
is FHA, I think, adopted 100-year plus 2.
Yeah.
So if you're using any HUD money, you might have to comply with that.
Looks like coastal is not just new facility, critical facility, it'd be existing as well.
Yeah, on this other one, yeah, on the last one.
Yeah. That's why I was asking is that I think HUD, I saw a order that HUD had adopted the 100-year plus 2, which includes the 500-year and in most locations. So that might be a limiting factor on funding if you have to do the 11,988 administrative order or executive order. Just talking. So.
Yeah, so for the technical consultant, I'm looking at that sheet. Looks like the third bullet, it says in areas designated as coastal zones, all new habitable structures, so habitable, that's not a critical. Finished floor elevation established at or above the waterproof to the FEMA effective 1% ACEC flood elevation is shown on the effective firm plus 1 foot. So we know for critical is 2, but we're doing 1 foot above for habitable homes and coastal. Because it would be with a 1% coastal, it would be the VE elevation basically. So that would be 1 foot would probably be plenty for VE. I think that's the only one, Erwin, that's not using 2.
Okay. Then we're good. I just wanted to ensure the recommendations would probably not limit any federal funding.
Well, and I would say in this case, Erwin, I mean, this is merely recommendation, right? So this is not a minimum standard that the RFPG is requiring for a project to be included in the plan. So certainly if an entity wanted to adopt standards that are greater than that or vary from that, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure that our recommendations wouldn't limit. That's what I'm saying.
And I think as you review the communities in Harris County, at least many of them conform to current Harris, whether they're a community in Harris County, they conform a lot to the current Harris County guidelines. And I think part of our goal is the adjoining counties and communities to Harris County, for those who may not have very strict or very defined regulation, this will give them a guidance to help them improve their conditions.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion from the voting membership?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, Elisa.
On the 5 new recommended standards at the bottom, I just note they're recommended standards, and then the standard itself uses language like encourage, and then it uses language like consider. And it just seems like we're about 3, levels away from actually making it something someone would consider. And I'm curious, we have the other ones, the habitable structure shall be versus the hazard mitigation plan. It's a recommended standard, but then we're saying we want to encourage them to develop a plan. Like, shouldn't we just say the hazard mitigation plan is regulatory entities shall develop a hazard mitigation plan? It's still a recommended standard. It just seems kind of silly to me to have the standard to be to encourage them to do that. I would think we would all want to have hazard mitigation plans, just given, Texas and flooding and hazards. And so I would suggest, since these are recommended standards, we're not, obligating anyone to adopt them. But if they do adopt them, the standard would be to develop a hazard mitigation plan to help, to develop a flood warning system for public awareness, to develop a property acquisition program for repetitive loss structures, and to have a maintenance plan for drainage infrastructure. I mean, that's what we actually want. We don't want them to encourage, we want them to actually do those things. And to, the nature base is even double. It's to encourage, so new construction to consider nature-based solutions. We're not even encouraging them to do it, but we're saying we want them to at least consider them. So I would suggest rephrasing all 5 of those, since they are recommended standards, to be a little bit more action focused and remove the word encourage, should encourage or encourage to, and actually make it the thing we want them to do.
I could ask a clarifying question real quick, because we do have that language throughout our standards, even from our first cycle standards.
Yeah,
there is
some of them, yeah, you're right. Some are operative and some are encouraged. So it just seems strange to me to have a standard be that you're encouraging. That's not a standard. That's like a kind of a meaningless statement. It's,
And I do want to point out, a lot of times when we think about these, we think about where we are physically, where we live and where we are. And we do need to remember Region 6 is broad enough that the northern areas, Region 6, have topography, which actually can lead to, quote, more flash flood situations than what we see in Houston, which it's really more of an inundation of an underpass than a flash flood crossing. So you may say flood warning system. I mean, while Harris County has one in general, part of this is to help all the communities within our region, not just maybe centric to the one you're familiar with.
Yeah. And, I see development of detailed hydrologic and hydraulic analysis. That is to develop those modeling criteria. So that is sort of operative. That's the standard. They don't have to. It's still a recommended standard, but to me, that's the sort of language we should have throughout these to actually make them standards and not just words on a paper that, okay, the regulatory entity is going to adopt a standard that says we are encouraged to do this. Like, that's not a standard. The standard is we will do XYZ, or we'll consider XYZ. You know what I mean?
Can I ask a question? What is the timing around when we need to approve this? I understand the request is today, but what is the deadline?
I think we should have some additional opportunity, especially if there's more interest in workshopping the language. I know this was sent out since the last regional flood planning group meeting. The last regional flood planning group meeting focused on discussion on recommendation versus adoption, as opposed to the specific language associated with the minimum standards. And so if there's additional interest in workshopping that language, I think there would be opportunity to do so at a technical committee meeting in October ahead of the November regional flood planning group meeting.
Yeah,
it'd be a quick turnaround there, because there's some inputs from our minimum standards that we would like to leverage in our needs analysis.
Thank you, Maggie. What I would suggest is that to assist this and facilitate it to being quick, we're going to put some strings to us. I would encourage there to be a technical committee meeting in October in time so that we can vote on this in our November meeting. And if you have comments to language, don't write the comment as you think it should be written. In other words, if you feel like you want to change natural-based solutions language, send that specific language to the technical consultant in advance so dialogue can happen at the meeting. But when you walk out of the meeting, there's not going to be any more dialogue, is the advice from the chair, that you're going to walk out, technical consultants going to take the information from that meeting, repopulate this list, and then share it immediately. So we have an opportunity to review it prior to
Yep.
And I'll, in the essence of time, if you decide not to look at it till the day of, it's going to make our meeting a lot longer, but we're going to walk out of that meeting in November with a decision.
I appreciate that statement. Thank you. Yeah.
To help with the timelines, they need to implement this in something. Should we say the left column doesn't change? It's just the definitions we're willing to change.
The verbiage, and particularly I would think of interest of things, I'm not going to say limited to only the red, these 5 new, but you're going to have a real strong argument to come back in November to say we're trying to change a lot of the other language unless it's clarifying the intent more than changing the intent. So I think the focus is page 2, the 5 others, and then if you see something that would help in the previously approved ones, I do really think this would make it better. Well, then let's make that argument.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do agree, Elise. I think the word encourage is soft. I think we can be stronger in it. And for some entities, they're going to say, what are you even talking about? There's no way we can do this. But what we're trying to do is set a goal of what we would really love and encourage each community to be involved in with regards to state flood planning.
Can I make a comment?
So what I'm hearing, just to summarize, is that it would be worth us maybe putting together a draft of that stronger language to send out to the regional flood planning group following this meeting, very shortly afterwards, in preparation for a technical committee meeting in October, where we can workshop this language and finalize that language for final approval at the RFPG meeting in November.
But things that we feel are solid, don't edit.
Right.
Let someone make an argument of why it needs to change. Thank you. Well, I know you have some additional items, so go ahead.
Yes. Tim, if we could move to task 3C. We may need to look at the presentation first. So in a similar manner to the minimum standards discussion, we are also looking for discussion and possible action on our goals for the second cycle. We solicited feedback during the July technical committee meeting, as well as during and after the August RFPG meeting. And so we do have that task 3C proposed goals posted online to our website, which is a key requirement for the technical memo that we are trying to get approved in November. There are 17 total goals, 15 goals from the first cycle where we have documented progress, and then we have 2 new goals for the second cycle. These 2 new goals, one of them comes from our survey, which was interest in understanding infrastructure data. So our 16th goal currently is listed as collect 75% of infrastructure data from flood regulatory authorities by 2038. This would be a new goal. And then the second one is a funding goal, and it is an update from our first cycle goal, which had, it didn't have a baseline to compare funding. So this current one says increase the FIF funding awarded within the region by 10% based on the $65 million previously awarded as of August 2025. Jonathan, are you able to show that? You'll go down to the second page. I will open the floor again to discussion on our second cycle goals.
I had a few questions. On goal 7, all flood regulatory authorities adopting the standards equal to or exceeding those we recommend. It says in the first cycle of regional flood planning, I think that's probably a holdover from last time. Would we not want to update that to just say as recommended by the RFPG so it kind of stays in line with the latest and greatest that we recommended?
Yes.
Agree with that.
On goal 14, I think we just missed it last time around. It says regional flood plain instead of regional flood plan.
Okay.
And then on the last two, the new ones, I was curious, is it a requirement by Water Development Board or anything like that to have the 2038 date because they're new goals, or did y'all just kind of back that out 5 years? And if it's not a requirement, would we want those to be, I mean, those seem like they could be met by 2033 would be my question.
Right. I'd have to go back and look at the language in Exhibit D. I believe 2038 was the shortest term that we could set, but I could be misremembering.
If you have new goals, that whole kind of shifted from last cycle, basically.
Right, like 10-year short term and 30-year long term. So it's just backing up based on the cycle.
Understood. No problem.
I guess that's a follow-up question I had for you, Matt. Like if we update the goal, the previous goal related to adoption of minimum standards to reflect the latest minimum standards of this cycle, but we maintain the adoption year, is that the intent to keep that 20 or whatever the previous year associated was?
I would think so, because otherwise, if we can, as long as it's within the rule, because otherwise it's just going to keep bumping it out. We'll never get there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think maintaining, we can make that adjustment to the language.
It'll reference the latest recommended, basically. Right. Any other comments from the voting membership? Elise, your hand is still up.
Oh, sorry, it's just accidentally still up. Let me look.
Hand down. All right.
Hey,
Any
Tim.
other hands? Do you see any other hands, Jonathan, Timothy?
Can you hear me, Tim? Yeah, hi. I just had a question on 10. That one's status complete. It's always good to complete our goals, but is this one that we could really complete? I mean, obviously we've incorporated Atlas 14 information, but the goal is to expand understanding of flood risk. I think the gentleman who spoke first today made a good point about understanding, sort of drainage flows and different things. Is there a way we could perhaps amend this goal to kind of continue that, to expand on that understanding?
I definitely think that is possible if we wanted to add an additional goal.
What if you said most recent rainfall data said Atlas 14, then when something new gets adopted, it just kind of rolls into that?
I think we can certainly create a new goal associated with expanding understanding of flood risk in Region 6. However, I would caution about having a kind of rolling metric, because we would like to have some sort of metric set in stone so we can compare back to and document progress towards meeting that goal.
So you think that's best in the form of a new goal?
I think so. I think we would want to demonstrate, as defined by the group last cycle, it was having mapping and modeling available that leveraged Atlas 14 across the region. And we've got that represented in our existing flood hazard layer. That's what's informing the flood risk determination this cycle. So I would say it's reasonable to note that as complete. And if there's another goal that the group would like to set to continue to better understand flood risk, we can adjust the phrasing of that and set a new goal.
And you've got MapNext, you've got Fathom, you've got, all these other data sets that y'all are diligently working to incorporate. So setting some sort of standard related to those data sets may be viable. Y'all know better than I do.
Perhaps maybe actually use and adoption of that data as best available, not just that it exists and that we've been able to leverage it for the regional development of the regional flood plan, but that it's been incorporated as best available and is being leveraged by communities to manage their flood risk.
So this is for the November report?
Yes, this is relevant for the tech memo. We don't have to, I think if there's a need or an interest in
I guess my
adding new
question
goals.
is, I've been hearing Atlas 14 is going to be out almost as long as I heard TSARP was going to be out. So I have great confidence it's going to be here in 2026, probably more than I ever had. But it's not best available data until an entity recognizes it as best available data. And the county can't say it's best available data for everybody. Unfortunately, the 26 communities within our region and whatever other city who wants to use it, but only place who's going to have Atlas 14 floodplain maps is going to be Harris County. Now, Montgomery County uses Atlas 14 rainfall data in their drainage criteria, and many other counties do. So I don't think the word best applies to that. What you're trying to do is say, if, again, we kind of get centric to where we're living. If Harris County comes out with MapNext data next year, it's not going to be FEMA approved as basically the FIS, probably for 18 months if we're lucky. So you're talking 2027 or 2028 till it's an effective. What you're trying to do is, in this gap, you're trying to say, hey, we would really recommend you using that. If that's the goal, can we write that goal before it's available, or do we need to write that goal, include that goal in our final version of our plan, which is going to come out inside that window? Because between now and when you submit your document, it can't be best available data because it doesn't exist.
It would be aspirational for sure to set it now and have a 10-year timeline or 30-year timeline, which are the two available brackets.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope we would have an effective map with MapNext before 5 years before our plan is actually even submitted for the final cycle. When's our final submittal date?
The draft regional flood plan fully compiled is due to the board May 2027.
Oof. Should we take odds? We'll have MapNext official by then. Augie, when you asked that comment, what was your goal? What did you want to see?
Really, I mean, just to look at those data sets that are likely to come on and encourage incorporation of those standards. Just kind of on the same basis, Matt was talking about making this more of a rolling goal. I do think it's important, the stated goal is to understanding flood risk as we go. And so this isn't a static understanding. So again, Tim, what you're providing and what Maggie's providing and Tanner, y'all's dialogue is better informed than mine. So I just want to see what standards should be mentioned. And then, we could lawyer it obviously, but I think the engineering technical perspective should drive this more than other perspectives.
Yeah, this is Aaliyah. I was going to say, I feel like having the technical committee look at this would be of tremendous benefit to the whole group. And so maybe we could handle this the same way we were talking about 3A, where this could go back to technical committee. And if anyone else who's not on technical committee has comments, to please send those to the technical consultants with the intention then of voting on this at the November meeting. Is that
and that would be in regard to an additional goal related to better understanding flood risk and continuing to improve that understanding.
I would say, I would ask technical committee to review all of these, and if there are any clarifications, additions, to bring those forward, and of course, if people have comments. But it might be as narrow as that, Maggie, but it could potentially be more.
I do like Maggie's idea of keeping this goal so we show completion and then adding something else.
I think that is great counsel from the technical team. Let's show where we can check off the box, but then push ourselves farther with additional goals.
Were there any other comments or questions related to the other goals that are already documented in the meeting materials?
Well, I just had a couple comments. I agree with Tim's assessment. What I will say is that the Atlas 14 rainfall can only be adopted in each individual jurisdiction by best available data. And I'll go back to my old days of the A zones. The A zones were an area of 0 to 3 feet of flooding. that were not really mapped. And so if you had any additional information to implement on a floodplain risk map, you had to do it best available data. And Montgomery County is a good example. I used to be the city engineer in Conroe, so the way I was doing it is that if you had additional rainfall data, the only thing you regulate to is the maps they have today. And so if you want to do something with Map Next, which obviously is not based on those maps, you'd have to do each one, as Tim and I have talked, each developer has to develop a model of their development with the Map Next criteria. They'd have to use that as best available data to implement that as a regulatory floodplain. So it's done through that avenue. So the best available data does work. And that's how it would have to be done. And of course, like you said, I can't adopt them for everybody. They have to adopt their own. I'm only, we're only the floodplain administrator for Harris County. So, so there's a limitation. I was just saying, when I was making these comments, I was trying to make comments. We don't limit ourselves, but they can always adopt something better or less. That's up to their choice because they're the floodplain administrators.
Yeah, so what's the right way to encourage floodplain administrators to adopt the best available data? And, what would that language look like, I guess, is my question.
Well, I think you're on the right track. I mean, the best available data, you can map a standard right now as Map Next because it is coming out in Harris County, like Tim said. Atlas 14 is really the one that's been adopted universally, so it's an increased hydrology. And so that's the one is really the one you can put the weight on. Map Next really doesn't affect anybody but Harris County. Tim said that. So I would leave that one out. I am subjective on a little bit of when it'll be adopted. So Tim, I think you're right. 2027 is kind of pushing it because it took 2 years to adopt. Once the maps were released for Allison, it took 2 years to adopt them, 2.5 years. So the adoption will probably miss the window, in my personal opinion, and they're probably not going to get them released until January at the best. So that window is probably going to sail, but that's all my comments on that. So I'm just trying to do it from a point that I just don't want to limit us, but at the same time, I want to be objective because if you do Map Next, everybody's going to say go pound sand. They don't affect me. At least that's what I would say in Montgomery County or Waller or something like that. But the Atlas 14 does. So that is something that they can stick their teeth into.
I thought when we were reading the recommendations, there was a language in one of the recommendations says if there is a new floodplain map based on Atlas 14 that we recommend you use that data.
We do have a minimum standard related to use of best
maybe
available
that's
data.
what Augie you're trying to get is that if something else comes up, be sure you're using it. So if the maps become official, all this becomes mute. Because then Atlas 14 is the law of the land for Harris County with new maps. Augie, so are you trying to bridge the gap between now and still when the maps? I'm trying to figure out what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah, I think you hit it. And also, these are goals that are 10-year windows. So to your point, you want those floodplain administrators to keep up with whatever the best available data is as it changes, whether that's Map Next or, something else, especially for these other floodplain administrators outside of Harris County. It may be Atlas 14 is there for a long time and nothing changes. But, and again, like you can obviously engage in your own studies to get better data. And I think that's to Aaliyah's point, we should probably kick that to the technical committee and come back on it. And I want to, address Erwin's comment. If you don't want to make it too hard or you don't want to take autonomy away from the people making the decisions, you just want to provide the right kind of encouragement and standard. So yeah, I think let's let this lie until we go to a technical committee meeting, and then hopefully in that meeting, somebody will come up with the Eureka language and it'll sell right through whenever we have another board meeting.
Take Harris County out of the equation. What we would like to see other counties within our region do is as they evaluate, as I'm a floodplain administrator, while I can't violate the NFIP, perhaps I should be able to ask my developer at whatever, can you let me know what the water surface would be under Atlas 14 so we can encourage the use of that to develop the actual risk instead of just relying on I know what we're trying to say we would like to see, and I got to remember, we're just recommending this, so it's not that big a deal. It's just, we encourage them to try to evaluate map flood risk based on Atlas 14. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and setting these minimum
or Atlas
standards.
15 or whatever, what the latest, greatest rainfall data.
Certainly, if you're recommending minimum standards or setting goals, they are kind of ideal, like aspirational.
Think of a goal. So I think you could take this, could we check the box on goal 1 that we had? And goal 2 is that communities use the latest rainfall data in evaluating flood risk as they apply their local regulations for floodplains. Something, just something, because that's what they want them to do.
And I think that language we have reflected in minimum standards, but for when setting goals, we will want to set a firm metric so that we know where we're trying to end up and can evaluate progress towards. Yeah. So it sounds like something we need to workshop with the technical committee as an additional goal.
Goal may be to update your maps to the latest rainfall data, Atlas 14 or more current by 2025.
Yeah. So, and that would be something that would be measurable.
2030.
That would be something that's measurable.
Yeah. I was at a floodplain conference 3 weeks ago and they talked about Atlas 15.
So I guess to confirm or to clarify, the technical committee will also be kind of workshopping this language
for a new
goal focused on, flood risk and our understanding of flood risk throughout the region. Prior to that, I did want to confirm or ask if there were any other questions or comments related to the goals as is in the meeting materials, because this is a key requirement in the tech memo that's due to the board at the end of the year.
I was okay with all this other stuff we agreed to in the past.
And the 2 additional goals related to kind of infrastructure and collection of that data within the plan. And then
the FIF funds awarded.
So we just made the November meeting have one more comment. Or do you want us to approve this minus the new one?
I think if the group is comfortable with this language, I would suggest that we motion to adopt this slate of goals pending the edits that Matt suggested at the beginning of this discussion. It just removes one more thing that we'll have to talk about at November, which is now, if we're adding additional discussion on minimum standards and the tech memo, it's
so
potentially
today you have 17?
Meeting. Yes.
And we want to check the box on one of them?
Yes.
So a motion to adopt the current goals as presented by the technical consultant with the check as accomplished for the goal related to I don't remember the direct language, someone can correct that in the motion. And adoption of these, and look forward to the presentation of one additional goal at our November meeting.
So moved.
And with the edits, a couple edits as well.
With edits, yeah.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Gary had a hand up.
What was that?
I believe I saw Gary with a hand up.
I think Erwin has his hand up. He hasn't taken it down.
Oh,
Gary.
Sorry.
All right.
Gary Besnick.
What was that?
Gary Besnick.
Oh, Gary, your hand's up?
I can put it back down.
I lost my screen, so.
If you can hear me, I don't have a comment anymore.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Okay, we've had I guess a motion by Tim and a second by
Erwin.
Erwin to Adopt the goals as presented with Matt's changes, including the acceptance of one goal as complete at this point in time. That's the motion. With us all knowing that they'll be bringing an additional goal forward in November after working with the technical committee. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else, technical consultant?
We just have a couple more slides. If you could go to the Task Force C slide, we wanted to give a quick update. We've, of course, only had a month to continue coordination of performing FMEs for sponsors, but we have contacted all the sponsors that were in our initially approved list. There were 31 sponsors contacted. We currently have 18 FMEs that have interest confirmed by 9 unique sponsors. And then we also have found that there were 27 FMEs advanced by the sponsor themselves, or that the sponsor was not interested. So Tim, if you could go to the next slide, we have a list of the 18 FMEs that we currently are still coordinating with sponsors. We are not performing these FMEs currently, but we are potentially looking in the November meeting to get approval on the FME list. And the technical consultants are currently evaluating this list, coordinating with the sponsors, looking into the cost associated with these FMEs and making sure that they are as accurate as possible. And so there will be an update in the November meeting where we hope to get approval on the final list and begin performing these studies.
And for voting membership, there is budget identified for our technical consultant to take FMEs and try to elevate FMEs to FMPs. And so those lists you would be bringing forward would be the FMEs that the technical consultant would undertake on behalf of the sponsor, on behalf of our region, to try to elevate these up so they could be elevated in the plan and represented as FMPs.
That's right.
And we'd also know there are FMEs being worked on by other sponsors. There should be an FME being worked on by the State Water Board for rural participants. Do we know if there's any projects within our region that the State Board is planning to address that FME?
We still need to send those to the board by March. So that is on our list of tasks that we have upcoming.
Great, it sets the stage for then November. Thank you.
There's no other comment. Oh, yes.
Just a
Augie?
quick question on that. What was our total budget for this item?
It was around 940,000. We have had to do coordination, and this list, of course, could potentially grow in cost as we evaluate deeper what each study needs, what the sponsor has in terms of model and background information. So we are still working through finer details, but that was the original budget.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tim.
All right, next slide. I think you have one more.
Yes, my last slide. You've seen this before. This is just our current schedule. In October, going to be a busy October with a technical committee meeting to discuss what we've discussed today, the goals and minimum standards, as well as results on 2A and 2B. And then we are also, as you asked about, Tim, we are also hopefully potentially going to discuss FMEs that the board could perform, which is due in March. And then also in October, a public engagement committee meeting to begin looking into a public meeting series similar to what Lower Brazos is doing, get information and feedback from our region. And then November, of course, is going to be a busy RFPG meeting where we need approval on our technical memo that is due to the board, as well as the items that were discussed today, the additional goal, the minimum standards, the Task Force C list. So again, it will be a busy meeting. And then in January 2026, we will have an RFPG meeting to begin planning for the public meeting series based on our public engagement committee meeting.
So there'll be a lot of opportunity in early part of next year for our voting membership to participate and help encourage stakeholders.
Yes, and it'll be in the midst of, as we anticipate, the fiscal year 2026, 2027 FIF competition.
Right. It would be good if we have the time in November, I guess you can bury it in your technical consultant line item, is maybe just tell us a little bit about how the call for projects works so that our membership is informed.
Yeah, I think another topic of discussion could also be, or to expand on that, like how to leverage the regional flood planning group meetings or this public meeting series to raise awareness, educate folks, make sure they understand how to access the information available on our website.
And then FYI, I don't know if Corey told you, I have a presentation in like 10 days, so I'm going to be reaching out probably tomorrow on some things I need.
Sounds good.
That is all we have if there's no further discussion.
No, thank you very much. And thank you for the discussion today. I know sometimes it seems it's all administrative, but the stakeholder group and the different backgrounds of the stakeholder group is important, so that when we talk about these things, we are trying to reflect the desires of our various stakeholder groups into the regional flood plan and give our technical consultants something to do on the side when they're not doing the regular things. So we had item number 10 we added. It's a discussion on the 2026 meeting schedule, location, and meeting format. Since Matt is getting here at 10 o'clock better than 9 o'clock?
Yes.
All right. I would affirm to that as well. Those of you, as we participated last month, the Aldine Theater District facility has some limitations, and I'm tired of managing with that limitation. So we're very pleased to be able to come down here to HGSD, and this will be where our November meeting will be. And I would like to open the floor to some dialogue on where's our 2026 meeting going to be. And I would really like to see more participation physically. And I've asked my vice chair to tell me what our options are.
Well, we have many options, right? But let's talk about it a little bit. I think that the first component for our group to really talk about is what is a physical location that works well for our goals. And one of the things that I do think is really nice, probably hard to see for those who are not in the room, but the subsidence district layout in this room is ideal, right? Like it's set up kind of like a council chamber where everyone who's a member can be up kind of at the dais. Everyone has, has their own mic they can use. We have a great place for members of the public when they're making comment to come to the podium and speak. I think that one of the challenges that we've experienced not only at the Aldine facility, but also at United Way is that those are really not spaces meant for official sort of public meetings. They're meant for more conferences or group discussions. Sometimes we end up with a situation where the members of the public are situated behind where the members are, and they can't even see us because we're facing the wrong direction, like at United Way. And so I think that there is a lot to be said for selecting a venue that is really meant for this kind of meeting. And while we don't happen to have much, audience attendance today in person, we have the ability to host a much larger group in a room like this. And so I think that a facility like this, whether it's this room or something similar, really lends to the productivity and credibility of our group. It's much more professionalized. It's much more organized, and I think will help us do our work better. So that's one thing about space. I think the other thing that the chair raised that is probably a good thing for us to discuss in advance of 2026 is that we began our meetings during COVID, when in fact we were doing only video conference meetings. Some of us will remember those good old days. And then from there, when we started, actually when there was a a rescission of the suspension of the Open Meetings Act requirements in September 2021, we went back to the regular requirements, which is that we needed at least the person administering the meeting physically present in the room. And from there, we kind of evolved to the hybrid format that we have today, which is where, for sure, the person who's running the meeting has to be in the room, along with anyone else who chooses to attend in person. And then, of course, we have the ability for others to join online. I think that a positive to this method that we've used is that it has been, I think, tremendously great to, record and broadcast these meetings so that people can watch them, pay attention to them, even if they're unable to be present at the meeting itself. That's a real benefit. I do think one of the downsides that we've experienced in this several-year experiment with hybrid is that more often than not, technical problems become the focus and distraction of our meetings and not the work itself. And one of the things I've noticed that every single one of us does have an alternate, or we have the ability to appoint an alternate. And so one of the things that I would love to get the group's feedback on is, we could modify our format as Region H does actually, and have it be where we have in-person meetings, we record them. We either could live broadcast, and or put those, put those recordings on our website. But I do think it presents tremendous technical challenges when we have folks participating both in person and virtually, including just the simple basics of making sure that we keep everybody's, image pinned and visible in the room, which is an ongoing challenge because we always seem to have limited screen space. And so I think those are the issues that I would love for the group to talk about today. And just for my 2 cents, I think that having I'll close on this, I think that having a room like this, whether it's this or a different venue that has the same kind of functionality, really benefits our group. And I do think we would see benefit to considering doing in-person meetings with alternates if we cannot attend, but continuing to broadcast or provide recordings of the meeting to the public.
Thank you, Leah. So the elephant in the room is, are we ready to strive to have full attendance at regional planning groups meetings in person? And if you can't come, send your alternate, and we're not going to bounce the dates anymore. We're going to maintain our second Thursday, and I've made the administrative decision 10 o'clock allows this facility to be used without as significant of an impact to your drive as would be if it was at 9. And my recommendation is we can't set the schedule fully for next year yet. We will still probably try to avoid monthly meetings, but be every other month. We set the goal of using the subsidence district facility for 2026, or until such time we find a duplicate facility somewhere more centric, and we meet at 10 a.m. and it's in person, and we try. And we'll keep attendance, and if it becomes an issue and you and your alternate can't make it, we'll address it as we come to it. But I believe the regional flood planning groups, through the success of the program, will become a more relevant element in our communities, similar to Region H. And we should set ourselves up to be successful in that manner. Open the floor to continued dialogue. Matt, you have a long drive, so I'm not trying to make you have a long drive.
That's all right.
Well, the only comment I have is Tuesdays and Thursdays are where they put the courts. And so as long as the meeting's not on those court dates, I most likely could attend. But if they are, I'm going to probably not be able to attend. And we actually restrict our employees because they have to be available for comments on the court date. So it makes it really challenging for the county to make it those meetings, to be honest with you.
Recognize that, and the only option I have for that is perhaps your alternate has less responsibility at court, perhaps, Erwin.
Or Wednesday.
Well, but then Wednesday is City of Houston City Council Day. I mean, we do run into some challenges around that.
And we're going to try it out. This is a goal. We'll see how it works. And
Is the concept to start this in 2026? We would remain
2026.
A hybrid until then? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. 2020. So feel free to raise your hand and say no. Our success will be an indication of how this is going to work. But yeah, it would be basically in January 2026 would be an in-person meeting on the second Thursday in January, which I'm not sure what that day is. This is what? 8th. Everyone will be back from vacation by then. That'll be the tough week to begin with. But if others are like you do have a lot of out-of-office commitments, I will probably try to manage some of my out-of-office commitments to fall on Thursdays, the second Thursday. So I might be remote all day, but I'll be here. That's my recommendation. I would like to proceed forward with that way today. And we can, of course, discuss more of this on the 10th, but I wanted it on, it doesn't have to be an agenda item other than I wanted to make sure we had a focus on it today. And with that said, not any other hands up?
I had my hand up. I was just going to say, I agree. I think it's a time to get back into real life, right? It will make for a better meeting. I support it.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to move on to item number 11, unless we have another comment. Agenda items for next meeting. We'll have, from a new comment standpoint, I think the only item I'm hoping that we will have will be a selection of the coastal communities vacancy position. That will be on the street. Those voting members will be getting an email from Jonathan on how to send that out to other people that you know. And I think we should all take an effort to try to encourage some folks to attend. So participate in that. That's the only new agenda item that I have currently, other than the standard briefing item that'll be provided by the technical consultant. All right. Anyone else know of another outstanding item? All right. Hearing none, we'll go to number 12. Public comments limited to 3 minutes per person. Any additional public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 13. It's adjournment. Really thank you for the dialogue today and the participation. Look forward to our continued discussions in November. Good luck to the technical committee meeting. And it is 11:33 and we are adjourned. Thank you.